All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining the Beyond the Headlines, talking about downtown Aiken's redevelopment efforts. And I'm John Boyette. I'm the executive editor of the Aiken Standard, and I've got two distinguished panelists with me today. And Stuart, we'll let you give a brief introduction.
Thank you. Thanks, John and Matt and the Aiken Standard and Post and Courier for having me today. I am Stuart Bedenbaugh. I'm privileged to have served as the city's manager for the Aiken since 2018. Prior to that, I served as assistant city manager. Aiken is a wonderful place to work with wonderful engaged citizenry.
Thank you very much. And Matthew, introduce yourself.
Sure. I am the city government, politics, and Savannah River site reporter for the Aiken Standard. I've often joked with people that I kind of came into covering the city right at the peak of Project Pascalis. So I guess you could say I kind of got thrown into the deep into the pool, and it took me a couple of months to get back to the surface to where I could breathe, but I feel like we're there now. So I'm happy to be here. And like Stuart said, Aiken is a great place to be.
I will echo that sentiment that Aiken's a great place to be. And obviously, this is a high interest topic. We've been talking about this for quite a while now, and we've gotten several questions already sent in to us. If you're on the call or as a participant, if you've joined us and want to ask a question, there's a Q&A button down on the Zoom bottoms of the screen. And so you can use that function. And if we have time, we're trying to keep this to about 30 minutes. So, but we'll see how it's going and go from there. So first question is for Mr. Bedenbaugh. And just Stuart, give us a brief recap of the downtown redevelopment efforts.
Sure. Well, this project, the genesis of this started when the Savannah River site plutonium settlement money came about to the state of South Carolina. There was a lawsuit filed in the early 2010s by the state of South Carolina against the federal government related to the storage of surplus plutonium at the site. And in fall of 2020, the federal government and the state of South Carolina settled, with the state receiving $600 million of plutonium funds. Now, through the efforts of led by Governor Henry McMaster, the General Assembly, and our local legislative delegation, specifically Senator Tom Young and Representatives Bart Blackwell, Bill Clyburn, and Bill Taylor, Aiken County as a whole received in excess of $100 million from those funds. The city, a portion of that, we received 27.1 million, and an additional $20 million was pushed by Governor McMaster and strongly supported by our legislative delegation for Savannah River National Lab to have a facility downtown. This downtown, of course, is a wide area in our grid, and one of the locations and why we are here today that we're looking at that they're very interested in is a portion of property that the city owns east of B Lane, between B Lane and Newberry Street Southeast. It's kind of a good combination of a lot of factors that makes it worthwhile to look at, because you've got a potential tenant interested in occupying some mixed-use space that could be built there. You have the available land, and there is funding to build this mixed-use building, which could potentially contain the lab, but also have some commercial space and some public space. So again, this is the lab is just a small part with potential for this potential mixed-use space that could be located there.
All right. Well, thanks, Stuart. There's a lot of good information there. Matthew, we know that there's been some opposition to these efforts, and we've had some lawsuits filed, and just a lot of general give and take at a different city council and design review board meetings and different panels. So why don't you touch on that a little bit for us?
Absolutely. So one of the reasons I've always said I kind of got thrown into the deep end of the pool was there was a lot of, I'm going to call it community activism related to the former downtown project that is now kaput. When I came in, there was a petition going around, there've been signs put around the community. And 3 lawsuits were filed to stop the previous project. 2 of those were dismissed and one of those remains pending. Latest update on that lawsuit is that the design review board has asked the judge to reconsider denying their motion to be dismissed from that lawsuit.
Okay.
And also, there have been several people to speak at various and sundry city boards, including the Aiken Design Review Board, but opposition was particularly heavy when the design review board considered approving and ultimately approved a conditional demolition permit for the Hotel Aiken, and also for the city council, particularly when they agreed to convey part of Newberry Street to the developer of the previous project. And that really kind of died down after Project Pascalis ended, failed, whatever verb you'd like to use there. And that's kind of picked back up a little bit since the city's announced the newest downtown project. There have been a few people to speak out at city council meetings and just say, hey, maybe we want the city to look at a different direction. Are we sure this is right for the downtown?
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Matthew. And as I said, we've had a lot of questions that came in. And Stuart, one of the questions that we were asked is, what are the city's priorities for downtown? If you could rank them or sort of describe what's important from the city perspective.
Well, I mean, there's several, certainly that's a good question. And one of them certainly is committed to preserving the historic design of our downtown. I think no one would argue we want our downtown to remain vibrant, have a lot of mixed uses, retail. We have a lot of unique boutique and retail type shops, a lot of food and beverage options, and some professional jobs, professional buildings as well for government offices, law offices, banks, etc. So we want to have that vibrancy, but also commit to preserve our historic downtown. I think my shot behind me, the municipal building, which was a beautifully restored building built in 1930, emphasizes that. And I think too, that's a message that we've received as it relates to the Hotel Aiken as well, trying to see if that can be preserved. But certainly that leads into the properties that the city currently owns that are located along the Richland Avenue, the 200 West block of Richland Avenue on the odd numbered side, to maintain as best as possible the integrity of those buildings while also restoring vibrancy to them. That is very important. Community input continues to be received. I mean, there's lots of opportunities at city council meetings, and certainly just discussions that our council has with citizenry, both in those meeting conditions as well as outside meetings, and just information as such people receive. But the historic preservation as well as continuing the vibrancy of our downtown. Yesterday I had the privilege to meet with a lady that was from Charleston, whose expertise and is in looking at buildings and offering suggestions to keep the design and the essence of communities unique, and ensuring their sufficiency and vibrancy. And I think that's something that we all agree and we want to see. And our council, I think, leads the charge in that, and gets good input from citizens to help guide their decision making.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Well, I know that sort of the elephant in the room, or one of the things that another hot button is parking. And if you've ever tried to go to a restaurant in downtown Aiken at lunchtime, you might have to circle a couple of times. And, there's been a lot of different ideas floated on, whether a parking garage should be, built, or one suggestion was that maybe we have a dedicated parking lot for, downtown employees and have them walk a little bit. Just touch a little bit on that if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Yes, parking, depending on the time of day or the type of event, availability of parking varies. What we see, which is interesting, I had someone whose field is analyzing and parking analysis tell me about 7 or 8 years ago that the average driver, regardless of community, prefers to park within a half block of their destination. And I'd never really thought about that because I tend to, where possible, park a little further away and walk a little further for the exercise, during my workday. But I began paying attention over the last number of years when my office was on Lawrence Street in the fall, when the leaves were off the trees. I could observe cars circling the block multiple times looking to park in front of their preferred business. So anecdotally, it appears that's the case, and I would suspect statistics bear that out. So Aiken has for a lot of free parking in our central business district, which I classify as from Pendleton over to, depending, Newberry or Chesterfield, bordered by Richland and Park. As the community evolves, as our downtown evolves over the years, and for example, potential mixed use building like we just described earlier, as well as other repurposing of existing buildings, whether it's the old Bank of America and other buildings come along, parking is certainly going to need to continue to be addressed. And we have to look at whether or not a structured parking facility is something that needs to be undertaken by the city. We believe certainly the location, it's depending on who you ask, there's a myriad of places you could put it, but really when you look at it fundamentally, there's really just a couple of viable spots. And right now, again, going back to my example of location and willingness, etc., one location I believe that has to be looked at seriously if a structured parking solution is going to be put in is the surface parking lot adjacent to the municipal building at Chesterfield and Richland. Currently, it's surface parking. There's a little more than 40 spaces in that surface space that's bordered by the municipal building, the playhouse, and the little blue building, which is currently, I believe, a law office and a esthetician type business. That is certainly a location. Should a structured parking solution be needed, that would be looked at. Now, there's a lot of questions that go beyond that, because certainly, as I talked about, committed to preserving the historic design of downtown. Should the council, based on input from the community and circumstances related to the evolving of uses of property in our downtown, continue, we will want to look at a structured parking solution that would fit in with the aesthetic that currently exists downtown. So again, when most people think of a structured parking solution, they think of a garage that is one of these institutional concrete behemoths that were put up probably in the 1960s or 70s that are not very aesthetically attractive, but they're very functional structures. But also the technology, should something like this be needed, is such that it could be designed in a way where, unless you are familiar that it is used for parking motor vehicles, it's not a structured parking building. It is. It could look like something that's been seamlessly put in. Again, the parking garage or structured parking solution tends to evoke it's one of those things. There's not a lot of middle ground in talking to our engaged citizenry. Individuals either tell me we need it, or they say we don't need it. So again, it's truly one of those so-called black and white issues. Not a lot of gray there, but that certainly needs to be looked at as our downtown continues to evolve, and we look at more facilities that could offer multi-use space for Class A office space, additional retail, public use. That's going to have to be seriously considered by the council with citizen input, and that discussion is going to have to be had at some point in the near future, I would imagine.
Okay, well, thank you very.
I'm sorry, John. Just so we're clear, the design review board has already seen one potential design if the city council and others decide to move forward with that, and that will not be the final design. And that's just if the city council decides to move, they have an idea of what the design review board would like to see, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. I think that is spot on. The design that was shown earlier this year is not an acceptable aesthetic design. Certainly from functionality, I believe it probably met what the purpose of the engineered work was for, but no, aesthetically and fitting in with the with our downtown, I agree that fell short.
Yeah, I don't think anybody who saw that particular design liked it. I don't think the design review board liked it. The public that was at that meeting liked it. Nobody liked that design.
I bet the designer's mother probably didn't like it either.
Yeah, I think McDonald Law or Tim O'Brien said they kind of threw like the kitchen sink of Aiken designs at that parking structure.
Yes.
So hopefully when
Mutt-like.
if they were to represent a design, that it would be much more like Aiken, so to speak, but not like Aiken in the way that that parking garage was.
Okay, well, thank you for addressing the parking situation. Matthew, this one's for you specifically. We know that there's municipal elections coming up later this year, and why don't you recap what offices will be available and what potential impact this topic might have on those?
Well, to be honest with you, the answer to this question is it's probably a little bit too early to tell. I mean, we haven't even really reached the filing period for the election yet, but just for more information purposes, there are 3 seats up for election in the fall. That would be the mayor's seat, currently held by Rick Osmond. And I think it's the District 1 seat held by Gail Diggs. And I think Kay Broll is in District 3. Don't quote me on that though. But anyway,
That's correct.
Oh, cool. Awesome. And those are the 3 seats that'll be up for election. Filing will begin right after Independence Day, I believe. And so the first really test will be, does anybody file and what do they say made them run? You know, are we going to have somebody that say, I'm vehemently opposed to the project, I'm going to do everything I can to stop it, and that's why I'm running? Is there somebody that says, hey, the city council is not moving fast enough, I want to get this done? So they're going to file. Do the incumbents file? What's their position on it? And so that's really the first big test. The next big test, unfortunately, really will be any primaries, and then also the general election, when you can have a gauge of like how important that issue is. If somebody campaigns on it, we'll know for a district or the mayor's race, we'll know exactly where the city stands, or at least the people that vote in the election stand.
Okay, thank you very much. So one topic that keeps coming up is, this is geared at Stuart, is, what about public input on this? And could you discuss the request for proposals, how that will work, and what kind of timeline does the city see happening?
Sure. Yes, public input is continued. I believe since this project was announced by the mayor at the state of the city, if not before, the public input is given. We hear it at council meetings. Again, council members hear public input from their constituents at functions, just out and about, and certainly via emails to them. And so that is a kind of a rolling sort of process, because it continues regularly, as it should, on issues of this importance. Aiken's got a very, as I've said, engaged citizenry, and that's one of the things that makes working for the city a fun job, really, because we've got it's never boring, and folks want to see they want to see things move forward in a positive way. But again, the as they say, the devil's always in the details. The way the process would work as it relates to an RFP is this. First, again, we are looking at the we've got Aiken Corporation is engaged McMillan Pasden Smith to look at the potential viability for mixed use space at the property that the city owns between B Lane and Newberry Street. And once they determine, let's say they determine that's a viable piece of property for this mixed use space, which could contain the lab, some public space, and some commercial space, well, then we would need to look at how they recommend where the footprint of the building goes. Once that is determined, then if council feels like, okay, this space would be a good space for this mixed use building to contain Class A office space for the lab, some commercial space, and some public space, or something else, then we would know how to proceed as it relates to the hotel, because we know that the current footprint of the existing Hotel Aiken, which has been closed for 5 or so years, we know that is going to be part of any RFP related to the Hotel Aiken. But the question is, would there be any other property? What other property east of B Lane may be available? Could be none. It could be a fair amount of that property, or it could be just a portion of it. Again, until the due diligence by McMillan Pasden Smith is complete, which we believe will be and ready to show to the public in August of 2023, then we'll have a good handle on the timeline in terms of as it relates to the hotel in a release. Because what we're going to do with the hotel is we will solicit proposals from firms to market the hotel for us with to market it, and then they would recommend and bring forward someone with an idea for Hotel Aiken. So again, that is our process. In terms of the timing, I think you're looking at later this calendar year as it relates to the hotel, just because we need to determine what the due diligence for McMillan Pasden Smith, what that tells us about what the viability and whether or not a mixed use building on the eastern side of B Lane is something we need to really take a real closer look at.
Is that the feasibility study that one of our people questioned about?
That is correct. That feasibility study is part of that's the key element of the due diligence, John.
Yeah. Matthew, we'll turn it over to you for a minute. You've written a couple of stories about other sites that are being considered for the Workforce Development Center for the lab, and just touch on that a little bit and talk about those plans.
Well, I also think it's important to remember that the city will be building a building that could potentially house the Savannah River National Lab Workforce Development Center, which is a mouth to say. But other than that, two of the places that I talked about with Aiken Economic Development Director Tim O'Brien, were the place where Stuart said there could potentially be a parking facility the parking lot next to the municipal building, and then also the sort of the vacant lot between Buzz Rich's law office and I think it's like a church or a restaurant or something on Richland.
It's the townhomes on Arbor Court.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. And those were two of the places that they really talked about, that Tim said they really talked about. And by they, I mean, I think the city and the Aiken Corporation. And the reason he said that they kind of preferred the place on Newberry rather than the parking lot next to the municipal building, just because the city may have wanted to keep that available for a parking structure should one be determined to be necessary. So that was kind of the preference before Project Pascalis ended, and then they were able to maybe talk about doing something with that property.
Okay.
Yeah, and I want to add to that. One of the things that makes having the lab downtown somewhere so attractive is, again, it helps so much with the tapestry of our current downtown. Just imagine you're bringing in this facility, whether it's the mixed use facility at the location I described, or some other sort of structure. The thing that's most attractive about that is you're bringing in more folks to work downtown, to shop downtown, mixed ages, the partnerships with universities. I mean, one of the things that the lab will continue to expand on is the partnerships they have with institutions of higher education, including our very own USC Aiken, USC, Clemson, South Carolina State, Georgia, Georgia Tech. Just the having that somewhere in our downtown is going to be such a plum for our businesses and for the community. And these are going to be individuals that work there. They're going to be good paying jobs. So again, they will be spending time in our shops and in our restaurants, whether during lunch, on the weekends, after hours. So again, it has that benefit, the spinoff, spillover, what have you, to our small and local businesses. So again, I think this is something it just speaks to how special Aiken's downtown is, that the Savannah River National Lab would consider potentially having a facility or being part of a facility somewhere in our downtown.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're getting close to our time, but if you guys are game, we can go do a couple more questions if you're okay with that.
I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Why not?
One of the follow-up questions, Stuart, is on the RFP proposal. Is that to choose a real estate broker or not go to developers directly, or?
Correct. It would, well, no, there would be one would be to choose a broker to guide the process, because they've got the professional expertise. Again, they've got there's brokers out there that have a lot of experience in what we were looking to do that we don't necessarily have. And again, it's bringing the experts in to manage that process for us. And then again, they would manage an RFP or some similar type way to ultimately lead to a sale of property as it relates to the Hotel Aiken and some other property. So again, I think that's something that we're going to be taking a really close look at to accomplish later this year. But again, first, the due diligence and feasibility work that MPS is doing, McMillan, Pasden, and Smith, will be sort of guide how that process works, if that's the route ultimately we go.
Okay. This is a little bit different. It's about the downtown area, but not about redevelopment. But the two bridges at Union and Fairfield Streets. So somebody wanted to know what's the status report on those.
Oh, that's a very good question. Union Street Bridge was open until earlier this year when it failed a routine bridge inspection. At this point in time, when I last spoke to DOT it's been in early May, they have not gotten a path forward in terms of the future of the bridge. The Fairfield Street Bridge is a different story. City Council earlier this year, a portion of our plutonium funds are going to be matched with funding that the State Department of Transportation has promised to us to rehabilitate potentially the Fairfield Street Bridge. That bridge failed inspection in January 2016, and the DOT was not willing to, unlike the York Street Bridge, invest the money to reopen the bridge. However, they are offering us $1,300,000, and we would commit ourselves $3 million to potentially look at constructing a new bridge. It would be similar, I would imagine, in aesthetic, what the public would drive over and see. It would be similar in the aesthetic look to the New York Street Bridge. It would still have wooden decking, but it would have a modern substructure.
Okay.
Where we are in that process is we have a firm that has provided us some initial designs, and internally we are looking at those. We just got those last month, and we are asking them to make some input. But what we're going to do is later this summer, I think we'll have something to where we can have public input, public meetings. Again, anyone citywide can make those comments, but certainly we are very sensitive to the individuals that live along the corridor from, say, Park Avenue over to South Boundary. So those meetings will take place, I believe, middle to end of the summer. The Union Street Bridge, again, DOT has not shared an update with us, but I can speculate, but it would just be that speculation until we hear something concrete or definitive from DOT. I really don't have anything else to say about that bridge.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a great story idea for Matthew to follow up on here in the coming weeks, or follow the public meetings.
Yes,
I'll get right on
absolutely,
that.
absolutely.
We just had another question pop in. What is planned for Williamsburg, just south of the farmers market?
Yes, Williamsburg, between the farmers market is located between Richland Avenue and Park Avenue on Williamsburg. As you know, there has been some controversy here lately, but before that, some private investor, a contractor, did some nice renovations and to some homes there, and we expect there'll be more of that. Also, the work the city is doing will be improvements to streetscaping. That plan is, I think the finished product will look very nice. However, certainly as I noted at the council meeting on Monday, the issue with the trees was unfortunate, and the comments I said at the council meeting, I think not going to rehash those here, but I think those still accurately reflect my perspective on that. The old so-called Jackson Petroleum building, it's been the home to DSS and other things over the years. That building also will be put out. The city owns that building, and that ultimately is going to be sold to a private entity to be determined. It has not been marketed yet. but that will take place, and I expect that will be repurposed into something that will enhance the quality of life in that farmers market area.
All right, let's wrap it up with a two-pronged question, and the first one is about are there plans to extend the historic overlay district north of Barnwell Avenue? And we've had a couple of questions about, how's the Silver Bluff overlay district? How does that play into all this?
Sure. Okay. The first one, let's do the overlay into the north side. There will be, in terms of how an extension or how some sort of additional or a new ordinance or district to be established. There are some very active discussions, citizens with council and citizens with the planning department. So there will be, I believe, that will be a topic that will generate some very good interest in the coming months. I guess the thing to look at that everyone is one of the things we talk about, preserving the historic design of downtown. Well, I mean, where possible too, we want to try to preserve historic elements all around our city. And if some sort of overlay, a conservation district or something that could help with that, I think everyone is amenable to hearing about that. I guess where the difficult conversations that will take place, that are going to have to be taking place, are for something like that, it needs to be done in a way that is both sensitive to that historic aesthetic that we see with some of those unique craftsman style construction and some of the other beautiful old buildings and the rich history that is on the north side, while also recognizing that existing property owners are being taken care not to burden them with regulations that could be economically not good for them. It could be costly. No one wants to do that either. So again, that's a balancing act. That's something that we do all the time. One of the things I think the city of Aiken has a very good track record at is having these discussions with competing ideas and creating something that is workable. It may not make everyone 100% happy, but it may not make everyone 100% upset. But again, the art is being pragmatic and compromising. I think that's something that makes serving as city manager one of the things I enjoy about the job is trying to find solutions, workable solutions. And as it relates to the Silver Bluff overlay, that is a discussion. Yes, council asked before it comes back to them that we have public meetings. We will have public meetings. They have not been scheduled yet, however, because again, we've got a number of things in the hopper, and with staff, it's a question of getting it queued up and ready. I suspect we'll have those meetings later this calendar year. I just don't have a date for you today.
Okay. Well, thank you both, Stuart and Matthew, for being panelists, and thank you everyone watching, especially to our subscribers who joined in and asked questions and listened in. And anybody that's on this, just a reminder that you can sign up for our free newsletters at Aiken Standard by going to postandcourier.com, and you can follow the /Aiken Standard, and you can find the newsletters tab on the website. They're free to sign up for. And if you're not a subscriber already, please think about doing that. We'd appreciate it. And think that we do a good job of covering Aiken, and keeping you guys informed. So anyway, we will sign off for now. And thanks again to Stuart for being our very special panelist.
Thank you,
Thank
Stuart.
you. I appreciate the opportunity. And again, a lot of good, vigorous debate will continue in the coming months about a very important, it's a good problem to have here at the city. We're excited about it.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see y'all next time.